perfect. You know, I want to start the show again. The screen's frozen. I can't see anything. Oh, God grief. Obviously, you lot can see me. Let me just put you all on a minute. My screen's not changing at all. What's going on?
I don't know. You was on mute anyway. That was quite funny. Ranting away. Best I've heard you.
I was getting really angry. So, are you on screen now, everybody?
We are, yeah, in columns. Oh, that's it, yeah.
Is that better? I can't. There's nothing on my screen. I can't see anything.
Go in and come back out again, Matt.
I think you two stay there for a sec.
Okay.
Hey,
and there he was. You were right, Grant. He was telling me last week it wasn't his first rodeo. It doesn't feel like it.
We've probably lost him now. It could just be you and me.
Well, first time it didn't make any sense, to be fair. Should we just take over regardless?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You're right, mate.
Fun Friday, isn't it? Have you got that Friday feeling?
I have. I absolutely have. I'm off next week as well. I see a coffee machine in the background, mate. Are you a proper coffee maker?
Do you know what? I bought that. It's just for show, really, because I've realised it's a right pain in the arse. I'd rather just have a cafetiere.
Oh no, I'm a proper coffee snob. I do the latte art, the whole lot.
What's going on?
Are you back? Can you see yourself?
I am. I can see everything now. It's perfect. So, should we start again? Should we just pretend that didn't happen?
That's what Meg does for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. It's Virgin again. Right, we'll start again. Back in a minute.
Sure.
So here we are. Ignore the first bit because we'll edit that out anyway for later. So it's not a problem. For the 22nd of January, it's Friday. The sun is out. I've put a shirt on. Hey, that's the thing. That's the difference for today. I've put a shirt on. Let's do the headline. There is support for self-isolating people is to be debated today, could be announced this evening when Mr. Johnson does his little hello everybody to the UK. That's at 5 o'clock. The UK government looks for the ways to boost testing and self-isolation among people with symptoms. Shoppers stuck at home shun new clothes in 2020. I don't think I've bought any new clothes. I'll ask everybody else in a bit. Clothing was the hardest hit sector last year, seeing a 25% drop in sales overall. The good news, though, Nissan commits to keep making cars in Sunderland. This has gone against completely what Andy Moore was saying. The Japanese car maker has told the BBC its Sunderland plant is secure for the long term. Hurrah! Brexit worked. Bond film release delayed for third time. The premiere of No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's final 007 outing, is pushed back again due to COVID. £500 COVID self-isolation payment idea downplayed. A senior government source says the idea was drawn up by officials and has not been considered by the PM. We'll talk about that as well. And police break up, this is ridiculous, police break up a 400-person wedding party. Guests fled when officers arrived at a North London school where the windows had been covered. So that's just insane. They're going to get away with that. That's mad. Anyway, let's see who's in today. Well, you already know who's in, don't you, really? We have Darren and we have Grant looking. I mean, Grant's changed the angle of his camera. Obviously, there you go. Look at that. And he's got his coffee machine in. You've got a bit more curtain as well, Grant. So that looks smashing.
It's like a catalogue pose, isn't it? I think he's looking, model-like.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Speaking about model-like, though, Matt. Matt, I'm speaking about model-like. You had a bit of a hairdo. It's looking good.
No. I've had a beard trim.
The hair, the spiky hair.
No. I've just showered and gelled it. That's not a problem.
Oh, fair enough.
No, the beard is different because I'm letting it grow. So
Lockdown beard.
Competing with you, Darren. Lockdown
yeah.
beard. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So Friday, we're here. There was obviously a few things I want to talk about in the headlines. I don't know if anybody wants to pick up on that. Obviously, it's great news regarding the cars because Andy has been ranting on for 3 years about all the cars being pulled out, and Nissan was the one he was talking about that they were going to pull out, and now they've said that they're staying, and they're producing the batteries here as well, which is quite cool. I don't know if any thoughts on that. Anybody? No one gives a monkey's bum. All right.
To be fair, though, the car industry, you think about the car industry. Pink top, unless it's been washed with sort of pink.
It's pink.
Okay.
It's purchased this colour.
Okay, fair enough. No, I think the car industry is a funny one, isn't it? Because and obviously I've got a lot of family who work at JLR. Anybody been out in their cars much? Mine sat on the drive. You think the insurance industry kind of do we need? They're not wearing or tearing. We're not sticking tyres on them. They're not. It must be really hardly hit because it's got to have put a year delay on anybody buying a new car because there's a year's less wear. So yeah, I suppose it's good news if they're.
I mean, there is. I mean, I've because of personal family reasons, I've had to go out a lot more in the car to see my dad. So I'm actually using the car more this time than I was first lockdown. So yeah, I don't know. I think, as I keep saying, this house is just, that's half of it people are working from home. Tina's still working, so she's back and forth. I'm now looking after my dad. He's part of our bubble, so I'm back and forth from there a lot. So I'm still using all the cars as normal. I'm actually going out more, which is worrying.
Okay.
And there is a story I want to say, a bit of a rant, because I had to go and pick something up from my dad's and take it to his doctor's yesterday. Now, as this is
didn't spill it, no.
I didn't want to say what it was. It was he'd sealed it up in an envelope and everything, so I didn't want to see it. Because I said, whatever I'm taking, I don't want to see it. So he put it in an envelope. So I get to the doctor's, and there's notices everywhere. And it clearly said, the doctors are upstairs, and there's one stairwell upstairs. And it said one person in the stairwell at a time. I went, okay, that's great, brilliant. So there's no one else around. There's no one to speak to, no questions I can ask anybody, no buzzers, nothing. So I go up the stairwell. There's somebody at the top of the stairwell already who's waiting to get into the doctor's, and they're hitting the buzzer. And there was basically, I stood the first level down on the staircase, and then somebody else came in. And there was 3 of us stood in the stairwell for 15 minutes because no one was answering the door upstairs. Now, that's against everything in the world. And also, I've got to admit, there was a nutty woman behind me on the stairwell. And she had the mask halfway like that. Nose was out, breathing, waving her sample around. But anyway, that's...
So I bet it smelled like a public toilet, didn't it?
Oh, that's the last thing I wanted to smell on the mask and everything. Why can I smell that? What can I smell it with the mask? So I'm out and about, and I'm just feeling like I'm putting myself at risk now, even more so.
Well, that's certainly a segue from, pardon the pun, from car manufacturing to taking samples to toilets. I don't know how we managed to get there, but it's a good thing that they're manufacturing this.
It's life. Unfortunately, it's life, isn't it? You just got to deal with it and get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Grant's very quiet today.
I think he tried. We've just talked over him. Bless him. Sorry, Grant.
Oh, has he tried? Sorry. I mean, have you been out much, Grant?
I went into the office for the first time this year yesterday.
Right.
I wanted to do some videos, and surprised to find a member of staff there. I didn't know.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. So, I mean, I've said to my staff, if you feel that you want to go into the office, it's going to be pretty safe because there's nobody there and everywhere's sanitized and stuff. And just from the point of view that you've got to look after your staff's mental health, haven't you? And I think some people, they can get very, low So I haven't kind of banned them from doing it, but just said, you know, you can go in if you feel you need to. So I was quite surprised to find somebody in there.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, well, I suppose if they, you know, did they want to go in? That was the thing.
Yeah, I did. They didn't need to go in, or you know, in terms of. I mean, the reason I went in was to record some videos, ironically.
Right.
So, and that means that I wanted the office to myself.
I've got other stuff. My massive screen has suddenly switched on over here, and I'm trying to switch it off. So just keep talking amongst yourself for a second.
From a staff point of view, then, because obviously working for a big corporation like BT that I do, we have what we call secure, safe buildings, and we have loads of protocols to ensure that in buildings are safe. So, and you know, processes around toilets, you have to do a CBT online if you're going to use one of these COVID-safe buildings, etc. So there's a whole ream of things that you have to do if you're going to use, and it's obviously to protect the employee and ensure they're safe, but also in this lawsuit world that we live in, I would imagine also to protect the company. I just wonder what the fallout will be in a few years' time when people have had COVID and not died from COVID, but had respiratory lung health issues. Then there'll be ambulance chasers chasing companies. I just wonder from small companies how you manage to ensure that they're safe. Is the building, because it's rented, leased from somebody else, that they have that COVID sort of policies in place?
So it's temperature checks on the way in. Everything is sanitized, you know, heavily. There's like, you know, sanitizer everywhere. They clean it every night, even now. They do these. They get this machine in once a week that fills the whole office with smoke. This stuff, because I was in just before Christmas, and I was sat in my office late at night. I was the only one in because it was pretty deserted back then as well. And this guy comes in. He didn't notice I was in the office. Puts this machine through the door, and it starts filling up with smoke. And it's this disinfectant stuff. And I'm like, is this okay?
What was it for?
Vaccinated.
Let's open the window, and yeah, it was like this sort of smoke. But they do that once a week. So
I see. Right, okay.
They're doing it in schools, aren't they? They're doing it in schools. It's like a deep clean. It's antibacterial.
I saw that in China. They were doing it in Wuhan, weren't they? Right at the start of the lockdown, when they were just spraying everything outside with massive jets. Oh, that's insane.
But what was surprising to me was, obviously being in lockdown, I've only been to the shops and back, and obviously there's loads of people walking everywhere. But I was really surprised how busy it was, because when I went in the last lockdown, I went into work once, and it was like a zombie movie. You know, there was nobody. It was dead. And yet I went in yesterday. Substantial amount of cars on the road. The car park was full, so which is, you know, really surprising. And it was relatively busy in Birmingham. Relatively busy.
We've learned to live with it a little bit, haven't we? I think the initial one we were absolutely nobody knew. There's lots more unknowns. Very petrified about whatever you do, and this time round, though I have to say, in Bude, it's still quiet, and if you walk past anybody of age, they literally look at you as if you've got a gun. You know what I mean? They want to move out of your way and everything else, and I understand why, but it's still got that fear factor here. But maybe because it's a retirement type area as well, so there's lots more aged people in the middle of a city, probably more younger people. But I think we just learned to live with it a little bit more, haven't we, and be less frightened of it, which is a good and bad thing. I think it's good that it's not going away.
No, I mean that news report that I read out earlier about that party, that wedding party in London, where 400 people together in a school, and they blacked out. They knew they were doing wrong because they blacked out all the windows. I mean, I'd love to. There must be some video of it somewhere of the police rushing in, and everybody coming out, jumping out windows, out fire exits, and they're trying to catch everybody. But I've just read a little bit more about it, and the organisers, which I think would be the bride and groom, I don't know, fined £10,000. Thank you very much. I don't know.
I'm more jealous that they've got 400 friends to invite to their wedding and can afford it, to be honest. Well,
What do we think? I mean, we on our WhatsApp group, guys. There was I noticed, I didn't read it properly. There was a bit of banter this morning and a bit of backwards and forwards
Oh yes,
regarding the whole sort of the Big Brother state. What do we think about that whole thing, guys? About the fact that we now live in a world where one of our basic human rights is actually been taken from us, and we could get fined for actually hosting a wedding party. What do we think about that?
I think we live in a world that we have no choice at the moment. But if I'm honest, I think it was coming anyway. I think COVID is accelerating things. I think the way we hold data now, if you think about the amount of things that we can't do that we used to do, banking. I remember actually when I started my first proper job at this little hi-fi shop, I was told
Which one was that, mate?
It was called Bullock Hi-Fi. Really
was
niche
it? Oh, okay,
place.
just checking.
Yeah. And
do you want to define the proper job element of that?
Yeah, well, it started off as a proper job. I thought it was
we didn't know either.
But I had to have a bank account, and I couldn't have money. So I'm going from when I worked in my dad's shop in a butcher's, where I was paid cash, where I had to have a bank account. My money was paid into the bank, and then the bank had now got control of one part of your sort of life, really, and rather than you being given that money directly. And that's the way it is now. All of our money is controlled not by us. And we accept that. We accept that we have no choice, that when we get paid by an employee, we don't even see the money goes into another organisation. That's just the way it is. And I think that's our digital passports, all this sort of stuff. It's on its way anyway. It's the way we live. Phones that we walk around with GPS on, we're tracked.
It's a bit different to not being able to meet your friends, though, isn't it? By law.
It is, yeah, it is. But I think it's just an extremity of where we're at. I don't see what the other choice is, and I don't see it from. I know that you talk a lot about the death figures, but I don't see it more about that. I see it more about the hospitals and the reality of not being able to use an hospital because they're just absolutely inundated. But I'm hoping, like the rest of us, that it's short-lived. I'm hoping this is just a ridiculous situation that is short-lived.
There's got to be a way of. Obviously, it depends how your thoughts processes, and I know Grant's thoughts on this because we've spoke about it for a year, really, nearly. About we've got to control the public in some way, because I don't want to keep dissing the public, but there's a lot of there's a big core of that public is stupid, okay, and they don't understand. Rules and regs and distancing and how a disease moves through the population and all that type of thing, and what we're trying to do by staying at home, because it's going to overrun one sector if So there's rules there. I'm quite happy with it. If it's, I was scared yesterday when I went out. I was scared, because I was put into a situation where. I didn't want to be out. I had to go out, and then I was in that stairwell with two other people, which I knew is incorrect, and I was worried about it. I was getting angry and annoyed more than anything else. And I came out. I was really annoyed because I thought, how stupid. Where these other people who were in there, it just didn't give a toss, basically, about where they stood or where they should be. And it's just. Yes, people need guidelines and controls in place as well. But it seems that a large majority just don't care. There's more people on the roads. I think actually the car travel was a little bit quieter, but not that much. There's still loads of people walking about in the streets. There's people having picnics in parks. Not in big groups of people, but they're still out there. And you think, no. Because this is worse than it was last year, for God's sake, and it needs control. It does need control, and if it does affect your civil liberty, then it affects it, unfortunately, because people just don't listen, and they now making up their own mind of what's right and what's wrong. Like that part yesterday, they said, fine, but we'll black out the windows in case anybody can't see in, but this will be fine. Well, how can it be fine? We know it, we know it in big groups of people. It transfers even faster now, and it's not. You do. I mean, there's been horrific. I don't know if anybody saw the BBC News with the reports. 6 o'clock of the guy in the hospital. When it reports, it is the worst. I have to say, media always worse, because that's how humanity is. If there's a car crash, everybody looks at it. You just look at it. So all this that's going on, the news are showing the worst parts of it, and it is only a small core at the top, but it's still a bad thing, and and the media are actually showing it in its worst situation to scare people into staying in. I think that's how it's working. Your thoughts? I don't know.
Yeah, I remember watching I mentioned it last week, and it was Piers Morgan, who I just can't stand. But he had all of the editors of all of the newspapers, competitors of each other, and they were all in agreement. They want to be in hospitals, and they want to scaremonger the public. Part of it is for sensationalism, and which annoys the hell out of me. You see it from all the way up at the Independent, all the way down to Facebook. Where sensationalism, people they want to report on the worst element, and they want to scare people. It's just the way we're built, unfortunately. But I think it's a necessary evil. I don't think there's any choice, and I think it is the naughty parent syndrome, where unfortunately we just have to, for the less bright children, we just have to guide more strictly without corporal punishment. But on that note, Grant, and I was thinking about something else about COVID, and I was thinking about bounce back and how we will bounce back. So we're thinking about pubs and restaurants and some of the hardest hit sectors. The certainly my sector as well, and holiday parks. But then ones that can survive, and I think it was proved last summer, because last summer was mental as far as all of the local economy was just incredible. Is that it's going to be like coming out of I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. Is we are going to gorge on all, if we've got the money to, if we haven't been made redundant or the jobs have gone, but we are going to gorge on getting out, just doing something that is deemed normal, having a meal with the missus or taking the kids down to the local cafe. People are just going to absolutely gorge. So I think that industry, if it can sustain and stay around, will absolutely come back in force, and will come back in force for a few years because of there's a massive fear of international travel now. So I personally think that part of the industry will really, really bounce back immensely.
I think all of it will. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, I've no doubt. My mindset at the moment has changed quite a bit, given the experience we've been through over the last 10 months. In that, I'm now planning. I'm doing what Andy says. I'm sort of hoping for the best, planning for the worst. I'm trying to think about how the economy will be effective long term, because although if the vaccine works and we manage to get rid of COVID, then yeah, huge bounce back. But I honestly don't think we will get rid of COVID.
No,
I think that what we're experiencing right now, there's a likelihood that this could be the way the world is, that every few months or so we go into lockdowns, because it seems to be that there's a consensus the world over that this is the way that we deal with this level of virus threat. So, in other words, we've taken the decision globally to say, right, we've got a virus that can cause this much death and, harm. And this virus mutates, meaning that, we can't keep up with it, which is what's happening. And therefore, the way that we are going to do this is we're going to do lockdowns, and we're going to do social distancing and all the stuff we now see as our normal life. If we've made that decision that this level of threat is dealt with in that way, I don't think the level of threat is going to change that much. The vaccine was supposed to be this big saviour for us. The virus is going to mutate like the flu virus does, from what I've heard from medical people, meaning that vaccine is only going to be effective this year. Next year, there'll be a different virus. We've got to come up with a new vaccine. We've got to do the whole thing over again. And everybody has to self-isolate while we're getting the vaccine out there. That seems to me that if this is the choice that the world has made, that this is now the world we live in, and therefore travel industry, leisure industry are extremely high risk right now, because I agree they will bounce back massively if things went back to normal, but I don't think things will.
No, I agree. And I think things will peak and trough in and out of normal. I think and that's where you'll get the rush, and people have to work out that actually they'll get a massive peak in the summer or whenever the releases are, and they have to take that and squirrel it away to survive. I don't know. I live in hope that the COVID becomes the flu. I know it's been compared to the flu, and I don't think it's comparative. I don't think it's a direct comparison, but I do think that it can probably get to that point where it becomes contained like the flu, and the numbers get reduced like the flu, and we start. That's my hope, is that we get to a point where it's another 20,000 people a year maybe that die. So it's not instead of the flu. So yeah, that's not good. But nevertheless, if it gets to that point, then we get to a point where the threat is a lot less. But I think we've got a long way to go. I think we've got a good 12 months before we even think about releasing into sort of normality.
Let me ask you this then, guys, just in terms of the way that we're dealing with this. Let's say we take a scenario where that COVID does end up being the way that the world is, and it's like cancer or the flu. There's stuff out there that will kill you. There always has been, you know. Do we continue with this scenario of lockdowns, or do we just live with it, live life as normal, knowing that in the same way there's a risk that when you travel your plane might crash, there's also a risk you might get COVID or flu or a cold or anything else? You know, what level of risk is acceptable? I think that's what would compared to the lack of our freedom that we now live in.
It's difficult. My business partner and bandmate has got COVID at the moment. Lives in a lovely place. Luckily enough, he's looking at a beach, a lucky bugger, taking photos, and he's fine. You know, he's absolutely knackered. His chest is hurting him. He's 36, so he's young enough and fit enough. I went and got his shopping for him. He was a floor above me as I put it in his porch downstairs, talking through his window. And even that part, I was like, it was raining, blowing a gale opposite the sea. You think I've got absolutely no chance. But even then, I was slightly fearful because I have a disabled son. So, and the percentages for children with learning disabilities and general disabilities is a lot higher. And again, we're talking mathematics and very early figures that we don't really fully understand yet. It's going to take years before these figures actually make any sense. So I feel that, I don't know, that level of risk. I don't think we're at the point where we can release, or we don't know enough. I think 2-3 years down, if we're still like this, the thing that you've got to always remember is that you've probably got an older father like Matt as well, is that do you want to be the person, and this is the guilt and the risk that we'll all live with, that goes and visits them because you want to live life normally, give them that big hug and be the last person to hug them because you've been asymptomatic and passed them on COVID and they are one of them people. So that's the balance that we're going to really struggle to find over the next couple of years. And you're right, I don't think there's a right answer, Grant. There just isn't. It's just a personal answer. And I don't even think it's able to categorize to say, okay, let's keep all the what we deem vulnerable, because I think 25% in hospitals now are below 50. They're 50 years old. So we can't even start to say, let's keep the vulnerable in one corner of the world or one corner of the country. It's an impossible situation.
I really just pick up on a point there that that BBC News thing that I've been watching, the people they were showing, and there's obviously a reason why they're showing this, because obviously, as Vicky said, the people need to learn to behave, and it is the younger section that aren't behaving. But they were showing so many people in their 20s and 30s who have died and dying from it on camera. They showed it this week, that it's not just that over 50s brigade, and it's, I mean, look, I've had a very traumatic week because my dad actually lost his wife at the weekend, unfortunately, not because of COVID, but because of cancer, and she was treated correctly. There was no issues with, there was treatments were pulled back. She suffered it for a couple of years. It came back very severe at Christmas, and they unfortunately lost her. They brought her home and they lost her on Saturday. But the thing that is a terrible thing for this is that I sort of stayed away at the start because there was too many people visiting. Her sister came, and actually, unbelievably, her sister had COVID. And no one knew at that time. But we've all tested, and we've all been tested negative. And my dad's just having his test this morning, which is I've got to stick that up my nose. Yeah, you've got to stick that up your nose, Dad. Anyway, so that's, and it's just it's just a weird disease, because we sort of at the start, and Grant was, and I sort of agreed with Grant on this side of things, that it was the older age group, and those are the ones we've got to protect. But this new, obviously, it's the variant it's more viral, and it's a 50% more chance of you catching it. It seems to be hitting just anybody now. And also, it's taking so many people who are younger. So it's a very, very difficult one to decide what to do. And I think Grant, again, is right, because we're going to, and you, Darren, we're going to have to live with this. You know, there's a new film that's just come on Netflix, which is dealing with COVID-23. You know, because it's every time one changes, a new one comes out, and we just got to deal with it. Hopefully, you know, we're going to have a vaccine each year, and that should, you know, resolve it. And we'll have to go into a month or two probably lockdown each year, and then able to get they've got to sort out the injections to be a bit better, even though they are doing 200 a minute in the UK at the moment, which is great. And to think, you know, 12 months ago, you couldn't even imagine this was going to happen with the injection. So I think we are going to live with it, but I think we still need to stay within the guidelines of what we're told. And if it is a little bit police statish, that obviously the WhatsApp group was talking about this morning, then it has to be like that. Well, I don't know. Final thoughts on everybody. Dan, your final thoughts on it?
Yeah, it doesn't restrict me from what I do. The police, nanny state, and my life's still the same. I haven't really changed it. I want to go and hug my dad, and my dad took that decision. He's 76, and he took the decision to have everybody over for Christmas, as in whatever family you could have over. And he said, I don't know how many more Christmases I've got. So I think it's each person to their own. I think you have to make very educated judgments yourself, and be responsible to everybody else around you. You know.
Yeah, that I think that's true. Grant, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm making plans and strategizing based on this being the way we live our life now. I really hope it isn't. But I've got to be honest. I don't. Lockdown's fine for me. It doesn't actually. You know, I quite like it, if I'm honest.
Well, we've said that several times, haven't we?
But you know, it's not me I'm worried about. I do worry a massive amount for business owners, small business owners. You know, and I don't like all of this for them. You know, and so my anxiety is based on. You know, I don't want to see people having this happen to them every year. I want the pubs open. I want the leisure industry. I want the gyms open. I want to see people that run travel agents and can travel to get the benefit from this wonderful world and life and opportunity that we've got. And the world that we live in right now restricts so much. Still got a lot of gratitude for everything and where we are. But yeah, it's not ideal.
The world has shrunk, hasn't it? It's shrunk.
It has. And it was going that way anyway because of the digital. You know, it was shrinking, but this has just forced it forward. But that's it then. Okay, that's the end of the show. We're going to leave you with something jolly. Obviously, Trump left office on Wednesday, and Biden stepped in. But I found this this clip of video that floating around, and it's obviously digitally messed about with, and it's quite amusing. So everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday, and everybody stay safe. Hopefully this is going to work. Here we go.